Lake Okeechobee, the dirtiest lake in America.
Testing these waters and asking scientists if these blooms can be dangerous.
The lake didn't disappear all at once. It exhaled slowly, shrinking inch by inch under the Florida sun.
That's a microcystis blue-green algae, and that can cause a hepatotoxin, which is toxic to your liver.
Until the water peeled back to reveal something older than memory. At first there were shapes, vague outlines in the mud, then bones, then rusted metal, ancient tools, drifting green islands. What rose from the exposed bottom wasn't just debris. It was a layered confession, whispered through phosphorus-stained soil and the carcasses of forgotten machines. Beneath the surface of Lake Okeechobee, Florida's great water heart, history stirs beside decay, and something is shifting that may never be reversed. The bowl that breathes. At the center of Florida's tangled ecosystem lies a lake so vast it mimics the sea. Lake Okeechobee, often called the Big O, stretches over 730 square miles, acting as both the state's freshwater reservoir and its most fragile pulse. This sprawling basin feeds the Everglades, provides drinking water to millions, and buffers floods during the state's seasonal storms. But its scale is deceptive. What looks like permanence from above is actually a balancing act, constantly managed, manipulated, and, more often than not, on the verge of unraveling. Each year, engineers and environmental managers perform a ritual shaped by fear and necessity. They consult the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual, a document as dense as the mud beneath the lake, to decide how much water must be released before the rainy season arrives. Too much water risks overtopping the aging Herbert Hoover Dike, which rings the lake like a cracked porcelain bowl. Too little water, and the lake's delicate ecosystem begins to collapse from within. In December 2024, officials released billions of gallons, dropping the lake level by 4 feet. For most people, this was a line on a graph, water out, lake stable. But for those watching the shorelines, it was a transformation. As the waterline retreated, something uncanny began to happen. What emerged wasn't just mud, it was motion. The exposed lakebed shimmered with unfamiliar textures, stirred by wind and the slow creep of life. Here, where water once ruled, something buried was starting to rise. When the water vanished. In 2007, Lake Okeechobee reached its lowest level in recorded history, just 8.82 feet above sea level. Locals recall it as the year the lake started to speak. What had always been submerged and silent began to reveal itself in quiet, unsettling fragments. Human bone fragments surfaced beside fragments of pottery, each piece baked dry by the sun and clinging to stories no one had heard in centuries. Archaeologists identified the relics as belonging to the Calusa, an indigenous civilization that thrived long before the first canals were cut into the Florida soil. To them, the lake wasn't a problem to be managed, it was sacred. These discoveries made headlines for a time, but most people didn't grasp the full meaning. The floor of Lake Okeechobee isn't just sediment, it's stratified history. Every drought uncovers another layer, another truth. Alongside those artifacts, ghostly shipwrecks sat half-buried in the marl. Wooden boats, long forgotten, leaned in the direction of vanished currents. Their hulls whispered of storms survived and communities lost. But the lake's revelations aren't only archaeological. As the water drains away, life crowds into shrinking pools. Bass, catfish, and bluegill are forced into suffocating spaces, competing for vanishing oxygen. Massive die-offs follow. Then come the birds and the alligators, gathering in predatory swarms as if summoned by some ancient signal. What remains of the lake becomes a stage for desperate survival, and the shoreline transforms into a battleground of beaks, claws, and bones. Each drop in the lake level doesn't just expose the past, it unleashes a spectacle of unraveling. Invasive islands and the war below. What lies beneath Lake Okeechobee doesn't always stay put. When the water falls, the lakebed becomes a vast, exposed theater where invasive forces begin to move, not silently, but with creeping inevitability. Across the cracked flats, massive mats of vegetation begin to lift. These aren't just weeds, they're floating islands of ecological disruption, and they drift with purpose, Torpedo grass, a stubborn invader covering over 14,000 acres of the lake, becomes unmoored as the supporting water recedes. Alongside it, hydrilla, another invasive species, forms dense, buoyant masses up to 10 feet thick. During a drawdown, these mats break free, drifting with the wind and current, smothering everything in their path. They clog water intakes, block sunlight, and bury the native grasses like Vallisneria americana or tape grass that fish depend on for shelter and spawning. These plants don't just displace life, they erase the foundation of the lake's entire food web. And yet, they're not drifting alone. Hitching rides on these green rafts are pests like invasive apple snails, which use the mats as mobile homes to colonize new territory. By the time officials respond, it's often too late. In 2021, aerial surveys revealed that invasive plant coverage had been severely underestimated. Entire crews were dispatched with herbicide-loaded planes to halt the expansion, only to realize that each intervention came with a hidden cost. Dying plants released trapped phosphorus, which in turn fueled toxic algae blooms. In 2023, entire fishing tournaments were canceled, as boat ramps vanished beneath matted tangles of greenery. For an industry worth over $2 billion, these mobile islands represented more than inconvenience. They were symbols of a system spiraling out of balance, one root network at a time. The ghosts in the muck. As Lake Okeechobee's waterline continues to recede, it peels back not only the living layers of the ecosystem, but also the long-buried scars of human history. What emerges from the muck isn't limited to bones and broken pottery. It includes the rusted remains of an industrial century and the darker remnants of war. Beneath the shallow depths, explosive surprises wait in silence. During World War II, Lake Okeechobee was used as a military training ground. Pilots practiced bomb drops over its wide-open expanse, believing the water would swallow the evidence forever. But in the stillness of a drought year, unexploded munitions sometimes break the surface, corroded, unstable, and dangerously intact. These are not relics for museums. They are dormant threats, shifting unpredictably with the mud that once kept them buried. Just beyond those metallic ghosts lie sunken vehicles, pickup trucks from the 1950s, abandoned irrigation pumps, corroded pesticide drums, all half submerged and fossilized in marl. Some were lost in storms, others were intentionally dumped, their secrets now preserved in a watery crypt. In 2007, the exposure was so severe that the state organized industrial-scale cleanup crews. What they found was a surreal juxtaposition: a kitchen stove resting near an ancient Calusa mound, modern refuse tangled with artifacts older than any written record in the Florida. Each item tells a story, but together they reveal a more unsettling narrative. This lakebed is a mirror, reflecting both the reverence of ancient civilizations and the recklessness of modern ones. When the water drops, the illusion of separation vanishes, and everything we tried to hide comes back into view. The sinking truth. In 2018, a study from the United States Geological Survey quietly confirmed what few had even imagined. Lake Okeechobee isn't just draining, it's sinking. Not metaphorically, but geologically. Decades of altered hydrology, flood control, and subsurface water extraction have led to a slow but measurable compaction of the lakebed itself. In some areas, the floor is subsiding by more than 2 inches every decade, gradually collapsing under its own disturbed weight. This phenomenon, known as subsidence, turns every environmental decision into a gamble with higher stakes. When engineers release water to protect the levees, they also expose compacting soils that draw the surface downward, altering flow patterns and increasing the concentration of contaminants. Over time, the lake becomes shallower in uneven, unpredictable ways, forcing nutrients, algae, and industrial waste into tighter spaces and intensifying their impact. Unlike drought, this isn't a temporary condition. The lake's structural foundation is literally shifting, making each future storm surge more destructive and every dry spell more toxic. Blue-green algae blooms, already capable of covering half the lake, thrive in these newly compressed zones where phosphorus is concentrated like fuel awaiting a spark. Manatees downstream suffer mass die-offs, and dolphins vanish from estuaries hundreds of miles away. casualties of a chain reaction that starts deep in the mud. The revelation reframes the crisis. The lake isn't just mismanaged, it's collapsing from the inside out, slowly, invisibly, and possibly irreversibly. And if the ground beneath Florida's largest freshwater lake is sinking, then every plan built on top of it is too. A liquid giant at war with itself. Lake Okeechobee was once a source of life, an inland sea feeding wetlands, nourishing wildlife, and sustaining entire communities. Today it stands as the battleground for a conflict that's less visible but more urgent. On one side is nature, stubborn and adaptive. On the other is human design, constantly intervening, always behind. The Army Corps of Engineers must choose between flooding nearby towns or sacrificing the lake's internal balance. LOSUM, their guideline system, tries to thread the needle, but with climate change intensifying Florida's weather extremes, those decisions are growing more fraught. When they hold back water, the dike strains. When they release it, algae blooms flood the rivers, coating coastlines in toxic green. Each drawdown, each storm, becomes a test of endurance for the lake, for the ecosystems downstream, and for the people whose livelihoods depend on both. And while satellites now track vegetation shifts from space, no technology can fully predict what stirs beneath the surface when the water leaves. In many ways, Lake Okeechobee has become a living symbol of imbalance, of how far we've pushed natural systems and how little time remains to pull them back. Beneath the surface of Lake Okeechobee lies more than mud. It holds memory, consequence, and a warning shaped in silt and steel. As the water drops, it doesn't just reveal the past, it asks us to pay attention. Because when ecosystems collapse in silence, the first step back is learning to listen. If this story moved you, stay curious, subscribe, share, and help bring these buried truths into the light.